Welcome to the IONNA Raleigh. This is a relay rechargery, and I'm going to show you around the facility. We have 2 charging stations with 4 plugs, and that's for NACS. And then we have 3 charging stations with 6 plugs, and that's for CCS. We see the normal IONNA coloring with that orange and blue. And the awning is really nice. Keeps you dry while charging. Though I wish these were solar panels on the roofs, they're not. And over on this side, we have a pet station. So if you need to walk your dog, plenty of grass over here to do that. We also have trash cans and windshield squeegees here between all of the charging stations. And on this side, we have the transformers and the shopping center itself. As you can see in the distance, we have a number of businesses. Only one restaurant I see is the Domino's Pizza. But if you do have a hankering for food and drink, snacks, we have a new 7-Eleven that is right next to it. An easy walk. And the nice thing is this road that's right here is rarely used. It's just a connector in the shopping center. I have arrived at the new IONNA Raleigh Relay station, and I am going to show you what it looks like on the screen here. I have 31 miles remaining, 10% state of charge. That's usually what I do when I'm testing charging stations. I usually charge from 10 to 80%. So there we are. So I'm gonna set up and start charging. All right, so here we go. First thing we need to do is plug in the vehicle. So I am going to take it out of the holster, open the charge port, insert. I'm going to pay. It is approved. Authenticating, preparing the charge. Note the cost is 39 cents a kilowatt hour. And there we go. We're starting at 10%, initial 49 kilowatts, and now it's ramping up. So this is a pretty good number so far. I consider the mid 160s pretty decent. The max I've ever seen, I think, is around 168. Go to some charging detail here. All right, we hit 20% in only 3 minutes and 40 seconds, currently at 166 kilowatts. So far, so good. We're just about hit 30%, and we hit a max of 168. Now we're trending down to 158. And there we are, 30%, and we did that in about 7 minutes. 40% at 11 minutes and about 30 kilowatt hours. holding steady at 159 kilowatts. All right, we hit 50% in 11 minutes and 20 seconds. Not too bad. You can see that there was a drop in charging around 42%. So it went from the upper 150s to the upper 140s. And now you just saw another drop. Not unexpected, around 50%. You'll see a drop to the next level. Now we're in the upper 130s. 41.4 kilowatt hours delivered. All right, we hit 60% in 20 minutes. We're at 51 kilowatt hours delivered, and around 57% or so, or around 56% or so, it dropped down to 125 kilowatts. So the stair-step drop is pretty normal. All right, we hit 70%, 25 minutes, 50 seconds. We're at 61.7 kilowatt hours delivered, and now we've dropped down to 99 kilowatts. We've had a couple of drops here. We dropped to about 115, and then now to 100. All right, we had another drop down to 89 kilowatts, and that occurred around 74, 73% or so. All right, we hit 80% and it is stopping. We got 72.6 kilowatt hours and we took a total of 33 minutes exactly. So pretty good charging here. I think one of the best I've done. Total cost, $30.38. So there's all the information. Average charge rate, 132.46 kilowatts, 10 to 80%. So there we go. At this point, I am going to unplug the connector and put it in the stall. Here are the results of the 10 to 80% charge. It was in the mid 60s temperature today. Max rate was reached from 13 to 29% at around 163 to 167 kilowatts. The charge curve shows the usual stair-step drop at normal intervals, usually every 10%. So with the total time of just under 33 minutes, not a bad result. I always recommend on long trips to charge from 10 to 80% or even lower if you can get to the next charger with that percentage. Going from 80 to 100% takes longer than 0 to 80%. More frequent stops will take significant time off long distance trips. Of course, you need enough charging infrastructure to do so. So depending on where you're driving, it may require you to charge to a higher percent. On the next chart, compared to last month at the EA Wegmans location, where the temps were in the upper 80s, I can definitely surmise that the slower charging that occurred back then was due to the charger having to cool itself down due to the heat. And you can see the chart at around 40% is where the EA charging dropped off significantly versus today's charging. The fans on the charging station were running full blast at that point. There were no such issues today with the lower ambient temperatures. The total charge time dropped from 38 minutes 14 seconds to 32 minutes 53 seconds. Pretty significant since the main difference was the temperature. On the third chart, let's compare to the charging test that I did in December of 2023. Here you can see even better results than today. On that day, the ambient temperatures were in the mid-50s. So the key to fast charging on CCS is to charge in moderate weather and to have the battery pack warmed up, not too hot and not too cold. Since we don't have preconditioning for the battery on the Ocean, you can do this by setting the drive mode to hyper and doing several high regen braking sessions, as well as just generally driving the car for at least 10 miles. If you're on a long trip, the battery should be warm due to the continuous driving. But if you start in the morning with a cold battery pack, you will not get as good of a result. And I am fully charged, 80%, showing 256 miles remaining. Let me do a quick check here. Yeah, let me go and do an estimated range reset here. I'm curious to see if that makes a big difference. It's showing 2 more miles, so not too bad. And there we go. I've completed charging from 10 to 80% successfully at the IONNA Raleigh Relay Station. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.